So, a very warm welcome to you, friends from People Bridge and Amitabh Kumar. And this is Amitabh here, and I welcome you all on behalf of People Bridge. And with me is Kavita Neelkantan. Kavita is an IIM Ahmedabad graduate with about 2 decades of experience. Hi, Kavita.
Hello.
And she has been working in learning and organization development space for quite long. And it's a really a fortunate time for us that she has taken time out for us to do this session for us. Session, as you aware, is on how do you craft a learning path for yourself. And I think one of the greatest learning what this COVID-19 crisis has given us is that no matter how prepared we are or how well we are placed in our career, in our job, we need to have some strategy in place. We need to constantly learn new skills and we need to constantly reinvent ourselves. A lot of things which we had taken for granted earlier are no longer valid. Things like our job profile, our job description, everything has gone for a toss. We have to learn new skills. People, the normal routine was you get up at early in the morning, you get ready for office, you go to office and are in office till 6 o'clock, and then you come back. Sometimes the phones continue, sometimes the phone doesn't continue, or you log on and log off. Now we have to learn the whole art of managing remotely. We also have to manage the team in which is virtual. Some people are working from locations where the internet connectivity is not so good. There are so many different challenges. We find that we have to access some file, but the file is in the office and the person who's supposed to handle that file is not there. So there are n number of things, while we also need to fix a lot of our work processes, but more than that, we need to fix the human process. Work process cannot be fixed until unless the human processes are fixed. And human processes can be fixed only if we are willing to learn new skills. That means we have to have our own learning path, and that is something which nobody else can do. We have to craft it ourselves. And I'm sure we'll have a very interesting session from Kavita and how we can do this. Over to you, Kavita.
Thank you, Amitabh, and a pleasure to be here. So, good evening, everybody. And Amitabh it's a wonderful opportunity that Amitabh has given me to speak about a subject which is very close to my heart. I think among all the different things that I have done, consistently I have mostly identified myself as somebody who likes to design learning and because I want to keep learning. So it is a very meaningful topic for me to share some thoughts and some of my experiences around this area that I have been working in. I'll just share my screen as well. And as Amitabh was saying, I am the founder of a consulting firm called Kavyata, and Kavyata actually means wisdom in Sanskrit. So what we do is to try and facilitate wisdom around work and prepare people and organizations for the future of work through our coaching, consulting, and our learning interventions. So I'd invite you all to take a look at our website later whenever you get the opportunity. And now I'll move into what is it that we want to be talking about in terms of crafting our learning paths. Now, the first thing is to understand what are the trends in learning and why is learning so important. And as Amitabh has said, more than anything else in the last 3 months, we have seen a completely different world. And perhaps the only way to make ourselves prepared for this new world is if we really switch on that learning mindset in us. And it's about learning a very different way of living, working, thinking, feeling, all of that. So that's why learning is at the heart of whatever it is that we are going to be doing to get prepared for this new world. And we're going to be looking at some of the trends in learning. What are some of the challenges? Because learning is not always very easy, and it's important to understand how we learn so that we know how do we overcome these challenges which are present in learning. And finally, we can also see if we would like to demonstrate our learning, how do we do that? So I'll just take one of the first part of why is learning so important, right? Because as we were speaking about what is essential for all of us now, irrespective of whatever career that we are pursuing, whichever stage of our career, whether it is a student, whether it is somebody who is in fact even in retirement stage, it is necessary for all of us to keep learning. And learning can span everything from behavior to familiarity with tools and technology to learning very complex subjects. But learning is now omnipresent, and therefore it has to become internalized as a continuous practice for all of us.
Kavita, your voice is low, coming low. Some of the participants are not able to hear you.
Okay, okay. Is it okay now? Is it okay now? Amitabh, is it better now?
Yeah, it's better now.
Yeah, yeah.
So people are still not able to hear it. Is it possible for you to use the headphone, or is it possible?
Yeah, yeah. Hold on. Then it will take me a couple of minutes to just connect.
Yeah. Just take your time. Sorry.
Okay. Hello. Amitabh,
Yes.
able to hear me clearly now?
Yeah. Now I can hear you clearly.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah. Okay. I just put on the video. Okay. Hi, everybody. Sorry, had to step out for a couple of minutes to get this going. Okay. So we were talking about learning and the trends in learning. I'll just share my screen. Okay, so as we were saying, that learning is so important because learning is going to fundamentally drive our careers and pretty much everything that we do in the future. Because we are stepping into a future where skills and knowledge is getting outdated so fast, and careers are no longer linear as well. So it is necessary for us to be constantly learning. And careers in particular will not be, any more dependent on organizational hierarchies and the way that it used to be very linear in earlier times. We are seeing that all around us, and that is why it is so important to invest in our learning, because learning is going to, in a sense, define how quickly we are able to get the relevant skills, the relevant knowledge, so that we can keep reinventing ourselves. Because reinvention, as we were speaking about right at the outset, as Amitabh said, it's going to be absolutely essential, because we are not going to be confined to even, one or two types of jobs. We are in fact going to be changing careers multiple times over our working lives. There is in fact a book called The 100-Year Life by two economic professors from the London School of Economics, and they have written about how it's in the future, if we are going to be having lives of almost 80 to 90 years, then we have to actually prepare for careers which are 60, 70 years long, and the rate at which skills and knowledge will get updated, it makes it so important for us to be constantly agile in terms of learning. Right? So that's why we are looking at this very important topic, that learning is what is going to drive our growth in future. Right? The trends in learning are all pointing towards continuous, virtual, online, various other trends in learning, about it being self-led, being customized. So all of us are now experiencing access to learning is not as much of a challenge as it used to be earlier. So we are now in the age of massively online courses, open courses. Tech companies are seeing their enrollments shoot through the roof. Learning in organizations is also becoming more and more virtual. So the trends are towards learning being something which we will have to continuously engage in. It will have to be self-led, in a large degree. It will have to be self-led, and it will have to be integrated into our work. So one of the things which I've been seeing in the last few months and earlier, so if I look at my experience as somebody who's been working in the space of learning over time, a distinct difference that I've been seeing is that earlier there was not that much of an integration between learning and work, because it seemed as if you could take out specific chunks of time only to learn, and then by the time you integrated and brought that back into your work, there would be some kind of a lag. But in fact, now what I've been seeing is that there is almost no separate time which is as much given to carved out and given to learn. We are expected to constantly learn and immediately integrate. So of course, there could be certain types of learning where you require some more time to learn, but there is this constant need to continuously learn and immediately integrate and apply it in the context of the work that we are doing. And even more so, as we move towards the gig economy, this trend is going to be seen even more. Now, against this kind of backdrop of learning, what are some of the challenges that are present in learning? And if I've spoken to different people from all, as I said, across different levels of careers, so from early stage, people in their early stage of their careers, to people who are fairly senior, people who are in fact in even wanting to reinvent themselves post retirement. Now there are 2-3 different types of challenges in learning. Right? The first set of challenges are what I call the external challenges, or the choice-related challenges. Now, what are these choice-related challenges? So one of the biggest things is that now there are so many kinds of learning options available that we don't even know how to choose. How do we prioritize? How do we know which ones are worth giving a shot? Which ones? What should we be learning? Because there seems to be a plethora of learning options, and it's a problem to decide what is relevant for me, and therefore how should I invest my time in this. Another thing is, how do we screen for the quality? How do we know whether this kind of learning is suitable for my needs, for my whatever professional development needs, the vastness of the topic? How do I measure my progress? Now, learning, especially in the case of adults, is It's not the same as when you have children and we are expecting them to learn. So there the progress markers are very clear. But in the case of adults, and especially because our learning it's across different kinds of things. It's behavioral, it's content, it is habits. So how do we measure that we are actually learning? And if we don't do that, how do we even know that we are learning? So these are some of the things which typically come up as challenges related to learning. Then the second set of challenges are with respect to the internal challenges of learning. Now, as I said, what becomes very important to understand is that we learn differently as we mature. So what we had learned, how we had learned earlier in different earlier stages of our careers, or even as students, that changes, and we have to be able to understand our patterns and therefore use that to be able to learn more effectively. So self-learning, making a habit, finding that motivation to learn, these become more important as challenges, even more than perhaps learning the subject itself or learning the content itself. So this is what. So we need to look at how do we overcome both these sets of challenges, the external and the categorization, choice related challenges, and our motivation and internal challenges to learn. So how do we do that? So I think as I said, the most important part in being able to overcome these challenges is to really understand how we learn, and that's what we'll be looking at in the next couple of slides. So the first thing is, as I said, understanding how we learn, and while there are some ways that we can understand commonly as this is how mostly adults learn, there are preferences that each of us has as well, and understanding and knowing that is important so that we can fine tune our own approach. The second is to really break down this overall learning goal that we have into smaller steps, because learning, as I said, unless it is really made fun, we don't feel like engaging in it. We have so many other things to do, right? I mean, it's the last 3 months, almost all of us are overwhelmed with work, with home, with all these kinds of things. How do we really make time for learning? That's a constant, motivational issue, and that's why learning has to be something which is very strongly integrated with a sense of, kyun karna hai, because and that kyun karna hai will create that fun in the sense of, feeling motivated, feeling engaged enough to continue to learn, right? And thirdly, the third way of understanding, how we can tackle these challenges is by categorizing what is it that we need to learn. Because as I said, different types of learning areas, you require different kinds of strategies to be able to learn. So when it comes to habits, when it comes to behaviors, when it comes to content, there are different kinds of hacks, learning hacks. And if we can understand those a little better, it could make us more effective in learning. So what are the behaviors and what's our understanding of how do we learn itself, right? So the first thing is that most fundamental, that as adults, we have to build on what we already know, okay? So when it comes to children, they are learning everything. A lot of things are very new and they are open to all of that. But by the time we enter the workplace, or even by the time we enter higher education institutions, when I work a lot with students, with young professionals, we already have a certain way of understanding and relating to the world around us. Now, using that now, and we also have an understanding of what we are. I may think that if there are 5 people in a classroom where you are teaching perhaps, a course on communication, you will find that each person has a different idea of what is effective communication based on our own experiences of how we have communicated. We think that this is what is effective communication and this is the way that I have to approach it. Now that's what I mean by we have to tie our learning and to prior experiences, and this is some of the whole design of learning has to be such that it builds on people's foundational strengths and their prior understanding of who they are and how they learn. The second thing is when we feel this motivation to learn, and we've been talking about that because learning is so important and therefore it is such an, it requires consistent and conscious effort. But at the same time, there is so much else which is competing for attention. So we have to really get in touch very strongly with our motivation to learn so that we can actually, become effective learners. And the third thing is to understand that as adults, we are much more motivated by wanting to solve a problem which, which will help us, to either do our work better or, give us some relief from something that we don't want to do. So basically, we are more problem centered than the content and subject centered. So that's the difference. And therefore, learning has to be designed in a way, and we pick up learning more easily and effectively if it helps to solve a problem. So a very simple example is that most often if we need to learn a new language as adults, right, we do far better if we just go and spend time in a different place where that language is most commonly used, rather than being, learning through maybe an online course. Of course, those courses are also useful, but typically as adults we engage more with how the thing can be relevant and practical for us rather than the pure content alone. Okay, so we'll build on all these types of this understanding of how we learn when it comes to figuring out what strategies do we need to learn. So the second thing which I said was, how do we make learning effective for us, is that we have to break it down into smaller steps. Now, how do we do that? We know we have a start point. Now, usually what happens is that, and I was speaking about this as categorization and choice related issues around learning, right? So usually we start by thinking that, oh, I have to learn, for instance, suppose somebody wants to learn a technical skill. Say it's about coding, right? Say somebody wants to learn the Python script or language as a technical skill. Now that's the start point. So you know that now there are so many options available. Suppose this is not a person who has been doing this earlier, and you need to do this to upskill yourself in a new area, relatively new area. Now, if we start immediately looking at it from the vastness of, oh, I need to learn this, and from there are so many options. How do I figure it out? Which course should I take? What level should it be like, etc., etc. Then it seems like it's a fairly big and complex problem to think of and solve. So that's why we need to first we need to understand, okay, what's the start point? Where am I right now on this skill? What is my foundational strength, my skill, etc. Then I need to define what is my learning goal. So what is that end state that I want to be in? So do I want to, why do I need to learn Python? And look at it in terms of a clear goal. If I learn this after 6 months, I need to be able to get this new kind of opportunity. This is what I will be able to now do in my career if I know this. So that becomes the learning end goal that I clearly define for myself. And I also try and think about, why is that end goal meaningful? How will I feel if I have achieved that end goal? Okay, so visualize that end goal, and from first of all understand where am I right now, what's my start point, visualize the end goal, then work backwards, because then it makes us think more in terms of what are the steps I need to take to be able to learn this. So what is the next step that needs to be taken? After we visualize the end goal or the state of learning goal, then we start looking at, okay, what does this place look like? What could I be doing? So if my goal is to learn Python so that I can, I can upskill myself for this kind of opportunity, what could I be doing in that kind of role? After 6 months, this is the kind of work I would be doing, and how would I be doing it? So if I'm able to visualize that, that's the next step. Then I need to think about, from there, again working backwards, so what do I need to get better at? Okay. Now in this example, we are talking about a content skill. It could be anything. It could be a behavioral skill, it could be a personal habit. So mostly learning would fall into either clearly one of these areas or a combination of these, but it's mostly one of these three areas, right? So we again work backwards and say that, okay, this is what I wanted, this is my end goal, this is what I see myself doing when I am in this end goal state, and therefore I need to get better at this. From there, then I come backwards and I think, okay, now if I need to get better at this, what are the options which are available to me, which are most suitable for me to get better at this particular aspect of learning this area. So that I need to go to that, the goal that I have defined for myself. Because if I don't clearly define that goal, I will be overwhelmed by the vastness, by the number of choices, by the level, all of that. So then I come back to think about, okay, these are the, if if it's a technical skill, and I've given examples mostly as on that, but it could be anything. It could be, you attend the class, various kinds of ways in which you can learn hard skills, content, technical skills. Uh, how can you learn soft skills? It could be projects, experiences. What is it that will give you that opportunity to practice and learn that? And if it's about habits, then how do you fit them into your life, right? Because habits are all about consistency and practice. So how do I fix these habits so that I can learn them and become better at them? So this whole mapping, if we do this before consciously, before getting into a learning situation or visualizing, I mean, figuring out what is it that you need to learn, then it makes it far easier for us to stay. One is that get that motivation, keep that energy going to continuously learn. Right? So even if we don't, write it down like this, but we have to mentally go through these steps of visualizing what is the learning goal and then working backwards from that. Okay, and finally we spoke about categorizing what is it that we need to learn. So as we said, there could be 2-3 major areas of learning. So content skills, I'm just giving some examples of typical areas that are pretty much in demand now, given the kind of opportunities which are around us right now. Then we have habits. So time management is one of the most important habits. I did, in fact, a survey on LinkedIn where I had asked people to, respond to what is it that you want to learn most. And productivity and habits for personal effectiveness was the most sought after area of learning. Second, after that was about content and specific area skills, functional skills. The third thing which people wanted to learn was self-awareness, so understanding themselves better. And then the fourth was interdisciplinary content. So find learning things which are at related to multiple fields. So it was very interesting because for me also it was an sort of an eye opener that okay, people really want to learn maximum around personal habits and productivity. Okay, so when it comes to different strategies for each of these areas of learning, how do we, as I said, make ourselves most effective? So when it comes to content and technical skills, the immediate goal is to be able to meet skills gaps, right? So that we can prepare ourselves better for certain types of opportunities. So first thing, as I said, to be able to know what is our start point, we need to get feedback on our skills gaps. And that could be, getting to that feedback from somebody. Usually you have people who have more technical expertise, functional expertise around us. So getting that feedback on, okay, so if I want to go from point A to point B, what do you suggest I should be investing in? What is the skill gap which you think I should be investing in? So this is the first thing, a question which can be asked to help us formulate our learning strategy. Again, the thinking is about, okay, the end goal is what's the kind of work or role I want to do, and therefore what is the skill or knowledge area which is most valuable and required for that. Therefore, I will start thinking about that, learning in that direction. Then once I know that, I will search for courses and content which is organized by the level. Now, this is very, I mean, it's fairly easy to do when it comes to the online world. It requires some amount of research to be able to go through various courses on offer, to be able to understand what are other people's learners' experiences with that. Is it a beginner level course? Is it a medium, advanced? And as I said, if we know what's our learning goal and therefore work backwards from that, we become, we'll be better at selecting, what level of course do I need for the next step that I want to take. Looking for learners' reviews. As I said, it's very important, and especially in content skills, to have some markers of progress. Right? So looking for courses where there are some built-in checks and markers of progress, like And this is also helpful from the perspective of people who are designing learning courses. So to be able to design courses, for instance, if I have to design a learning course which is around content, right? I mean, something which is an area of knowledge which I want, then I will keep in mind all of these so that I create a learning course which meets the needs of the learners. I must build in different level. I must figure out who is the kind of learner, and therefore is it going to be beginner level content, advanced level content. I must be able to put in checks and measures so that people can assess their learning. So both of this, it works on the side of the learner and the person who is designing a learning experience. The second area that we spoke about was of soft skills, behaviors. Now this has been hugely important, and as the more and more we are sitting and having these Zoom meetings and pretty much everything working from home, people are really realizing how important it is to be able to understand others. What we used to do as conversations which used to happen with others, you're able to read those signals, right? But in a Zoom call, to be able to understand what is this person really feeling, struggling with, how do I adapt my behavior to meet the needs of my team members. So behavioral skills have become very important to learn to develop. Right? Now again, how do we approach therefore the learning around behaviors? The first is to understand, okay, what are these behaviors which are going to help me be more effective in whatever it is that I want to do and I am currently doing, right? So if it is maybe an area of, say, communication, is it something to do with being able to, work better with my team members? So what is it that, and again, asking your manager, your supervisor, somebody, a coach or a mentor, somebody like that, as to what is that area of connection that, I mean, what is that area of that behavior which you need to improve upon or work on to become more effective. Then another way to look at how you need to develop this behavioral skill is using an assessment or a psychometric tool, right? So especially in the case of perhaps understanding your interpersonal behaviors. So using a psychometric which will allow you to understand where are you, what are some of the areas of strength as well as areas of development for you. Now, the third thing is a very important part of learning behaviors. Now, behavior, by itself, we'll only know how we are doing on behaviors when we are with practicing it, and when we get some cues from somebody with whom we are engaging, right? To be able to know, Acha, has my behavior shifted? How is it affecting the other person? So that's why it's very important to seek out when we want to learn something new as a new behavior. Say, I want to learn to be able to give feedback in a more constructive way, right? Then I need to be able to find out or create a space where I can practice a new behavior, because it will take time for me to internalize something. It won't happen immediately. So if I'm, suppose I have this area that, as I said, how do I give feedback more constructively? And that's an area where I need to improve in how I give feedback to my team members. Maybe a safe space to practice that could be, can I, practice that conversation of feedback with somebody in my family? Ask them, how do I sound when I give this feedback? Yes, so most of the times when we do something without getting that when somebody else doesn't hear it, we have a very different view of how we might be doing. But having a safe space where we can, practice a new behavior is very important in being able to develop these behavioral skills. And again, the fourth point is about learning behaviors. It happens very effectively with groups rather than trying to do it on our own, because that is not doing it on our own. We don't get that kind of cue about is it working or is it not. Whereas with a group, you'll get that live. That's why, of course, people in before COVID, we used to get to have these group programs where we used to go with our colleagues and be a part of a behavioral learning program. Even now, if it has to be done even virtually, ideally these any learning strategy which is to do with behaviors has to be designed for a group of people. Of course, you can also have one-on-one coaching to help people with learning specific behaviors. But again, there is a some kind of a involvement of another person or a group of people. And of course, consistency in being able to practice these new behaviors. Then we come to the third area. As I said, the most important is what I found from my survey, that personal habits and productivity, how do we improve our productivity and effectiveness through our personal habits, right? Now, learning strategy around behaviors, and there is a fantastic book which I would recommend all of us to pick up. Most of us, you may have heard of it. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. So Atomic Habits, he really gives fascinating examples and speaks about this whole process of learning and cultivating habits. Right? So habits, and the way to learn them are to make them, so some of the top things which of course he speaks about and we may have understood by our own experiences, habits must be self-led and self-paced. Now if I think that somebody else, and we most often, this comes up when we want to pick up some fitness related thing, right? Sometimes we think that, oh wow, that person is running 10 kilometers. I should also try and do that. I mean, I should make a habit of doing whatever, 30 Surya Namaskars or whatever. So things like that. But it doesn't work unless that habit is my own, something which fits in with my own pace and my own, level of where I see myself. It just doesn't work if I pick up somebody else's, level and goal and then, try and immediately work on it like that. So a habit can only be formed if it can start from where we are, and it's self-led and it's self-paced. And again, why does it matter to me? Okay, and the third point is what we spoke about, that it has to tie in with how we see ourselves. So if it is a very starkly in contrast to that, so suppose I see myself as a night owl. I mean, I am most productive at what 11 o'clock at night, but but because there is so much to be said about early morning habits of most successful people, I will really struggle to do that. So it has to be, I may get there, but it has to be the journey. It's not something which if I, read about, and otherwise it happens for very few people to, change yourself completely. So building on what you know of yourself and what you see of yourself will make it easier to pick up those learning, and make the learning around habits more effective. And the power of tiny is something which even is pointed to in this book by James Clear, which I mentioned, Atomic Habits. So using tiny, goals to keep yourself motivated, and he gives a fascinating example of how, if you do something better by 1% every single day, over a period of time it compounds to some 37%. So you can do the maths. I didn't do the maths, but I found the number quite, fascinating. And obviously he must have done it, so I went by that. Right. So the power of compounding in habits is something which is really, really, powerful in developing learning around this. Okay. So finally, I want to just speak about, okay, what are some of the most important and sought after skills right now, so that we understand that, where are the learning, where are the skills which are being, what are the kinds of skills which are being demanded, and therefore what could be our approach to learning and preparing ourselves to acquire these skills. Now, this is from the LinkedIn Learning Report, which came out in January 2020. So across generations, across different kinds of generations, and about employees from the millennials to generation Gen Z, and then the boomers as well. The most sought after skills are around management and leadership. So not surprising, interpersonal and managerial leadership skills. Then it becomes about technology, digital. So learning to use the technology to become more effective in whatever it is that we are doing, right? Engineering and coding also demanded quite a bit. So various kinds of, so technical and functional skills. And finally, creativity. So what's on the left over here is basically it's the learning needs and the demand for learning spans different areas, from interpersonal to digital and technology, critical thinking and problem solving to creativity. So all of these are very important in the future. They are not going to be either or kind of situations. So as we grow in our careers, we'll find that certain kinds of areas of learning become more important than others. And one thing which will be universal for all of us is to be able to learn and be comfortable with technology in whatever level that it makes us more effective at what we are doing. So that's about the different kinds of learning which will be required in the future. So I'll pause now, and I'll I'd love to hear from you what you think and take some questions as well.
Kavita, thanks a lot for your wonderful insight. I really like the part about social learning, creating safe space. Well, this is something, which is, I mean, we all do it at times, but we really don't, put it in that perspective.
Hmm.
What exactly is the safe space, and we do informally talk to our friends, our families,
Mhm.
but this concept of safe space is really new. And also social learning, if you can talk a little bit more about social learning, because the whole concept of social learning has been totally turned upside down, because
Hmm.
traditionally, as an HR professional or even as a LNOD professional, which most of us belong to,
Mhm.
that accepted ratio was 70-20-10.
Right,
you
experiences.
know Experience is 20% and 10% is
Hmm.
classroom.
Hmm.
But now that that 10% has become zero as of now.
Hmm.
And maybe the concept of classroom itself has changed.
Hmm.
And there are a lot of things which you can do in a classroom vis-a-vis what you can do on online session. So how
Mhm.
do you see this concept evolving?
Okay. So I think great question, Amitabh. And as you said, that we have been seeing usually we've categorized learning into 70-20-10, right? But
Yeah.
now the classroom it's a very interesting idea that you brought up, that the classroom itself has changed, right?
Yes.
So now, what I mean by social learning in the new context is that how are we, as perhaps on the other side, as you said, as L&D professionals, as learning designers, how are we creating opportunities for people to learn in groups? Because that is going to be, so that's going to be the part which is the classroom, which is the social classroom. So, and it cannot be only about the teaching, but it makes it makes it the responsibility of the learning designer to create a design where interactions among the learners itself in the virtual setup are a very big part of the learning experience. Okay, so how do you design that? We have to keep that really strongly in our minds when we design learning, because usually what is available to us is, for instance, when you go to a lead, we have so many courses on becoming effective leaders on, say, a Coursera or a Udemy. Why does it not work? Because it's not, you can go and read that. Right? You can go and read all the content. You can even do some of those practice exercises. But when it comes to behaviors, unless you are getting feedback, unless you are putting it into practice, it's not going to have the kind of impact that you want it to have. So that's what I mean by social learning, especially in the case of behaviors, that we need to create learning. Our learning designs have to be such that they bring people together as peer learners. So that peer learning aspect is going to be very important. I think it's like what we are doing in such interactions, right? What we are
Yeah.
trying to do is seed off and create a community where people can then pick up and engage with the community itself.
Yes. Thank you for a wonderful explanation. And I will leave it open for the floor for the people to ask questions. I have a couple of more questions, but I will rather have the audience ask these questions.
Yes.
You can please type in the chat box. Okay. Uh, so one of the questions from the participants is, in the
Hmm.
present age of virtual learning through various platforms,
Hmm.
at times it is becoming overload of learning,
Hmm.
especially during this lockdown period.
Yes.
What is your take on this, as it is equally important to unlearn?
Absolutely. Right.
Yes.
That's a fantastic point. And yeah, so in fact, I was thinking the other day I got I was reading, I was telling my son some stories from the Mahabharata, and we were talking about Eklavya. So, in this context, what struck me is that just now all of us are becoming Eklavya, right? We have access to courses. Jahan par earlier we used to have, we needed institutions, we needed colleges, what was the equivalent of Dronacharyas in that way. Now it is, we have access to all of this. But we will have to figure out कि कितना सीखना है, and the very interesting thing is that just like he cut off his thumb, we will have to cut off parts of our learning which are no longer relevant. So unlearning, how do we do that unlearning is again by figuring out more importantly that what is it that I want to learn. And because my time is limited, my effort is only that much that I can put in. So that's why I was speaking about the fact that we need to very strongly understand what is our learning goal and work backwards from there. Otherwise, there is so much. In fact, almost every day I get carried away. There's so many interesting things to learn. We can get carried away, right? Also,
Yes.
how do we figure out where should I stop and what should I learn? So if I know that this is my learning goal, then I know that okay, this kind of learning seems relevant to this, and this is what I probably need to spend less time on. So that learning goal, and that is where I think HR and NLP professionals and managers and supervisors can play a very a role of a coach to help you understand what is your learning goal, help you have that, clarify that, and have a conversation to understand, okay, this is where I want to go, and therefore this is what I want to learn.
Thank you for a wonderful explanation. And one more question which I have is, how do you look at behaviors? Is you also talked about it. The behavior and the soft skills are very important aspect of it, more than technical skills. While technical skills are easy to learn online, behavioral skills are not so easy to learn. And while we will have this coronavirus, the COVID-induced lockdown and everything, and at some point in time, I'm an optimistic person, so I do assume that maybe if not next year, maybe in a couple of years, things will get better, and we will get back to connecting again with people on a face-to-face basis, getting back to meeting rooms, meeting people again in coffee shops, whichever ones are open or the new ones will open, or we will travel to different places and meet up. So how do we ensure that we don't forget the behavioral skills which we had, and in between interim come for 2 years where it is not required, and because you are a very different person when you are online and when you meet face to face. So how do we ensure this doesn't happen?
Yeah. So I think, in fact, I'm more optimistic than you. I think maybe next year itself we will get back to normal. But I think behaviors are not so easy to unlearn as well. And just as difficult as they are to learn, they're also difficult to unlearn. So if we have had, if we are, until now, it's not as if we didn't have opportunities till now to refine our or learn certain behaviors that we want to do, and we have been practicing them till now as well, right? So we will most likely continue with them. We are not going to forget them. We will have to adapt them, and that will require us to have conversations about what is the new way in which these behaviors, what does effective behavior look like in this virtual setting. So that's where, for instance, norms, right? Those norms that people, for instance, when it comes to virtual work, the norm that a team and the leader of the team will set for how we work together, and will give us a very clear, boundary that is norm ke andar we have to, practice the kind of behaviors that we have. I mean, if we need to work like this is the boundary condition. Okay. So given that, and that's why it's important for, I think it puts far more responsibility on leaders and on managers to create those, to first have those conversations to define what are the new kinds of norms around behaviors. And then within that, it will be, once we know that and that is communicated clearly to us, that gives us the whole, play, the field in which to continue to practice these behaviors.
Okay. So one very interesting questions when you were talking about safe distancing, and it has come from Mr. Nagendra Prasad.
Mhm.
So his question is: feedback is supposed to help bring behavioral changes, but people don't take feedback seriously, especially when it is from genuine persons. For example, one's spouse. What strongly drives a behavioral change, and
Hmm.
do we need to wait for that? And I think he's raised a very valid question, very valid point. I mean, he is using a spouse, as a data point. So I will leave it at that. But
Yeah,
the question is, when somebody is very close to you,
right.
you often don't take that feedback as
Hmm.
seriously as you would from an outsider,
Hmm.
or from an office setting in the boss, or even from your colleague.
Hmm.
You would listen more to sometimes to an external person than to somebody who is very very close to you.
True.
How
Yeah.
would you
You're right.
respond? Yeah.
So I would say that there are two things that can be done. One is that, see, when it comes to very close people, and especially if it is family members, spouse, parents, see, there is two parts of it. One part is where you want that other person to accept you however you are, right? The very reason for these ties being much more close to us is because we think and we have that mutual, expectation of each other that this is my own, family person. This is the person I'm closest to. So I want that person to accept me for however I am, and therefore I don't want to change, right?
Yes.
So why can't that person accept me for however I am? And so why would I want to change this? So that is an expectation. And then there is also, and I think over a period of time, you understand that, some part of it is okay to have that expectation that yes, some part of me I will not change. I want you to accept me the way I am. And some part of me perhaps which is not, I'll change a little bit for you because you are also perhaps, I see that you are also doing that for me. But the conversation is usually difficult. I agree that it is not a very, it's not something which we usually do, but I'd say that it requires both of these, that accepting that the other person for whatever that person is, because, it is, that is the nature of the expectation in this type of a relationship. Whereas in a work relationship, you feel that yes, there are, some parts of you which you feel are a little easier to change because you can see that it is in connection with a slightly more external, goal.
Thank you so much. I think it's a wonderful explanation of the point we was raised.
Yeah.
And any other questions which is there from the audience? Yeah.
Nagendra Prasad, you have asked a very tricky and difficult question.
Yes. So no, but it's a very valid point actually. Because we too often miss out from what is the closest to us, and we go around looking for feedback from the whole world,
Huh.
and we sometime miss it out. So, Kavita ji, any book or any reading material, you spoke about a couple of books,
Yeah.
and anything you would like to suggest, which can really help us. See, more important thing is as we see as an HR professional is that it's very difficult to unlearn.
Mm. Mhm.
While it is far more easier to learn new skill,
Mm.
unlearning part is the most difficult. So
Mm.
anything which is specifically focus on the unlearning part of it.
Mm. So unlearning, as you say, is
Yeah.
more difficult, and I would say that in fact, if we don't invest our energy on the problem of unlearning, but rather invest our energy on the aspiration of what I want to learn,
Yes.
then it becomes a little more automatically it starts happening. So
Sure.
I always like to, and this is a thing which my teacher has taught me, and I always go by this, that change and growth happens by addition and not by subtraction. तो हम
That's
जितना
true.
फोकस उस एडिशन पे करेंगे वो सब्ट्रैक्शन धीरे धीरे होता जाएगा because we cannot add infinitum. So the more I add, some parts of me will then become less important, and that unlearning happens a little more naturally. When I tell people that force yourself to unlearn this, then it actually brings up a lot of resistance. And I find that is more difficult. So I always like to, and I found this in my experience that the more I identify with my aspiration for what I want to learn and therefore why I want to learn it, it makes me connect with that, that my energy goes towards that. And I find that happening with a lot of people that I work with as well, that energy, when we focus it on the learning and my aspiration, the unlearning gets taken care of.
Thank you so much for a wonderful, session. And one last request from our side, if you can just send in some of the books you have suggested. If
Sure.
you can, just send in the names of those books or any of your LinkedIn article, which talks about these aspects, it will be really be helpful to the participants.
Happy to
So
do that.
thank you once again, Kavita ji. It's a wonderful having you with us.
Thank
And
you. It was very nice, and I loved the questions. Very,
yeah,
very different kinds of questions. So thank you
yes.
for creating this opportunity to.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye bye. Good
Bye.
night.
Bye. Good night.
Yeah. Please. So somebody wants to ask a question. Yes,
There is
Seema ji, please go ahead and before we log off. Yes. Sure. I think someone wants to ask a question. Please, we'll just take 2 more minutes.
absolutely.
And I think, yes, please ask. I think she is still around or she is logged off. Okay, somebody wants to know if we can get the slides. So we will be, sharing the recording of the presentation.
Hmm.
And what's not important is slides, but more of the important is the overall content and the workflow. And that is something we'll be sharing. Okay, Kavita ji, thanks a lot. And wonderful having you with us. Good
Same here.
night and have a nice weekend. Huh?